Thank you for joining us. If you're looking for all things Raleigh, North Carolina, you have come to the right place. In today's video, we are joined by the incomparable Stacy Anfindsen. I'm saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, great. People always butcher my last name. I want to make sure that I don't do the same to you. If that kind of, so we're going to do a great market update, talk to Stacy just about some stats, and I'll talk to you sort of about the feelings of what I see in the market, and Stacy can back us up with some stats and talk more in depth about that. If that kind of content sounds interesting to you, please definitely hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can stay on top of videos as we drop them. We do drop them on a weekly basis. So I talk about, I make a lot of Seinfeld references. I'm a big Seinfeld guy.
Right.
So Jerry once said in an episode, the higher you go up on your face to touch your face when someone asks you about your relationship, the worse off the relationship is. And I think about that as it relates to the real estate market, and when people were asking me in 2022, I was here. 2023, I was here, and in 2024, I'm sort of all the way up here.
All the way up.
So for me, the market has been very frustrating because we have this historically low inventory that has started to creep up a little bit, but pricing has continued to rise. So the old economics of supply and demand, you know, they're in tug of war with each other as interest rates continue to had gone up. So it's been an interesting couple of years, and I have one buyer's agent who works for me, Alyssa, who said it to me best, I think. She said, every buyer is treating the current market like it's 2008, and every seller is treating it like it's 2021. So I think there's a serious disconnect between where we're at and the optics from each segment. Talk a little bit about just general demographics and what we've seen in population growth that has gotten us to this inventory shortage, and you know what you see from a supply and demand.
Well, the blessings of living here is there's more people moving in than moving out.
Yeah.
And it's been that way since I moved here. So unlike like California and other places like that, where it's more people leaving and coming in. So that's, you know, the housing is a shelter issue, right?
Yeah.
You rent it or you own it, it's shelter. So you got to have it. You know, one of the things that is, we're still dealing with a lot of COVID effects, and the big COVID effect for the residential market was interest rates.
Right.
And you have a year or two of historically low mortgage rates that people bought their houses on or they refied on, and now you've got rates that are probably 2x that. There's really not a lot of financial incentive to move, which is kind of a little bit strange because you have unprecedented levels of home equity.
Yeah,
people can do cash out of their houses and move into something else different, but when they look at what's out there different, they don't like it.
Yeah.
So the challenge that we have, and for those of you listening out of state maybe, that maybe are not from a new construction centric market, we do have new construction here, and we do have resales. So new construction can create inventory, and it is creating inventory, but our challenge is resale inventory.
Yeah.
Because pretty much the predominant areas that people want to live here are Cary, Apex, Morrisville.
The areas where it's much more difficult to do new construction.
I mean, there is land in Apex and Cary,
but it's pockets.
But it's pockets. Most of it's infill. So essentially those markets are predominantly resale.
Yeah.
And so when those houses come on the market, you've got more people that want them than that are available. And that's where you get that 2020, 2021 market. So the challenge that agents have is, how do you identify which one of those markets are that, and then which one of those? I'm not sure we got anything at 2008 levels yet. That'd be a stretch.
But it is funny being in it in the way that I'm in it versus the way that you're in it. Is I represent sellers. I represent sellers, and I have a team of buyers agents that
Right.
that work for me that represent buyers.
Right.
And the level of pickiness and the sort of lack of motivation to buy is at levels I haven't seen in a long time.
Right.
Not maybe 2008, but
Right.
but certainly more closer to 2017, 2016, where there's just buyers have no sense of urgency. That's what I'm seeing.
Right.
Are you seeing that in the numbers over the last several months?
I mean, if you look at sales being down, which they are, then you have to figure out why. Because if you have more people moving in and moving out, then you should have more demand. So
Right.
the reason that you don't have greater sales is inventory is one of those reasons.
Right.
And you do have maybe a bit of a shift in the demographics. So when I got into the business, it was like we had these things where here was the rent versus own. And so I dealt with a lot of first-time home buyers, and I laid it down on paper. So historically in our DNA, and the numbers have proven that out, and they still prove it to this day, that it's better to own than it is to rent. One of the things that the millennials have been kind of sold is that we don't want to own anything. And part of that's from the recession. They saw their parents get clobbered, and they didn't want to deal with that financial and mental scar tissue. So I said, you know what, maybe. And then all of a sudden, the last probably year or two, you've seen this kind of thing in the national press where it's better to rent than it is to own.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of renters have bought into that. And so that clips some of the demand out of it. It just makes the buyer's agent's job more of a challenge, because you still have to articulate the fact, and I've done this before, is that it is still, in spite of house prices, it is still better economically to purchase real property than it is to rent it. So those are kind of the challenges that we see in this market, because you're right, if you're just looking to white paper something and say, okay, you've got more people moving in and moving out, and it needs shelter, why don't you have increasing sales? And so the reasons behind it are numerous, and over a couple of them.
Yeah, so when you talk about it being a better time to own than it is to rent, I think, like you said, it's historically always been that case. If you had that conversation with somebody, and I've spoke about this on previous videos, the county assesses real property every 4 years. Used to be every 8 years, now it's every 4 years. And if we had this conversation in 2020, and now today, most people in Wake County have seen their property values almost double. So absolutely, it's a great time.
Right.
It's always a great time to own. But have you started to see, so as I've seen, like I spoke about earlier, a little bit less urgency from the buy side,
Right.
and it's causing days on market to shift up. Are you seeing pricing starting to come down?
It depends. And that's why, well, look, so everybody wants easy button. Everybody wants to say one size fits all for the market. But one of the things about our market, there's a ton of different submarkets. So if you go out to, and once again, new construction is the elephant in the room. So if you go out to East Wake, if you go out to Fuquay Arena, and if you go out to Wake Forest, those are the three kind of dominant new construction areas. Pricing in those areas is dictated by home builders.
Right.
And so when home builders say, we need more sales, corporate says we need more sales, what do local do? They cut prices. They cut prices, what does the resale market do?
They've got to follow suit.
So it really is, it's important to know where you're living and the presence of new construction around you, because the East Wake submarket is totally different than a mile radius from downtown Apex and a mile radius from downtown Cary. It's just totally different markets.
And most of our business is sort of Southwest Wake County. I live in Apex, talked about Apex all the time in our videos.
Right.
Do a lot of business in Cary, Holly Springs, Morrisville, those areas. And I have found that over the last, August is always gonna August.
Right.
August is always tough.
Right.
From a seasonality standpoint, schools around here are starting. But I've got more listings on the market right now than I've had in 10 years probably.
Right.
That aren't necessarily moving as quickly as my sellers would like them to move.
Right.
And I'm telling them we don't have a price. I'm actually telling them we don't have a price problem.
Right.
Because in real estate, you're taught 14 days or 10 showings, and you're doing a price drop.
Right.
Right. That's what's hammered in your head, right?
Yep.
But I think that's a lazy approach.
Right.
And I think it doesn't speak to what's actually happening in the market. So I'm seeing those conversations are a little more difficult to have because sellers want to know why their homes aren't selling as fast, and they want to maybe even get as aggressive with the price. But I think that is irresponsible. I think people are leaving money on the table by not being patient. Do you agree with that? Or
So I'm getting ready to rebut you.
no, I want that.
You ready?
I want that.
I'm coming at you hard.
Yeah, no, because I'm operating off feelings and you're operating off stats.
Yeah. So here's the one thing that the genesis of what I'm getting ready to explain came from starting in COVID, right? So everybody, the trend for looking at houses started online really in earnest in COVID. It was a decent amount, but then it kind of like blew. Almost 100% of people started to look for their house online. So you look for a house online, there's a price associated, right? And you see pictures and you go through it. So that's where the first buyer pricing perception comes from, is that. And so they're able to do what we call in the appraisal world the principal substitution. So they have their wish list and they see what comes up, and then if they like it, they put it in their shopping cart. And they put it in their shopping cart, and they've got stuff in their shopping cart, and they contact the agent. They still want to see this, and we go, okay. So, in theory, if there's nothing for sale, which essentially is what we've been since March of 2020, and something comes on the market, and there's more demand than there is supply, why doesn't that go immediately? Probably have about, I think the last count was about 35 or 40% of houses that go under contract in the first week. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Why isn't it 100%?
Pricing.
Well, so how do the buyers know that? I'm fascinated by it. I'm not going to give you an answer, but the only thing I found out was days on market. And the market reacts in 10-day segments. And so the studies that I've done is probably 85% of the houses, resale houses, go under contract in the first 10 days. And they sell for about 1 or 2%.
And that's historically.
That's within the last 90 days.
That's within the last 90 days.
Last 90 days, and I've been doing this study for 3 years.
Well, that's why you're here. You're the king of numbers, so I want to know.
It's pretty consistent in that. Now, that makes sense, okay? But what about the rest of the crowd? Why do they get picked over? My conclusion is it's days on market, and it's days on market only. When it gets that 11th day, and the data supports it, the price drops 1 to 2%. And then you get to the 21st day, we get another 1 to 2%. And you get to the 31st day. So that it's really, in my world, when you see things happen in a linear fashion, it doesn't happen often. So I think it means something. And the days on market relationship, as days on market increases, sales price to original list price decreases. And so if you want to be patient and wait for 90 or 120 days, you're probably going to take a 5% haircut. No. From original list. And if you want to be really patient, like 6 months, it can get up to 10%. So that's really the question, and what I've kind of been counseling a lot of the agents is these are the conversations that you have to have at the listing presentation. Because you can have the greatest CMA in the world, and now the CMAs are getting better because you actually have inventory that you can compare it to, but the market's giving you a thumbs up or thumbs down. And it's tougher for our older agents to get that because we were raised on, like in relocation appraising, we were raised on 90 to 100.
I'm not an older agent. You can't put me in that bucket yet.
We'll call it experience. So, the relocation appraisal, it's 90 to 120 days. That's what our anticipated sales price is. But you have a house that's on the market for 90 to 120 days now. It is badly mispriced. It's just not mispriced. It's badly mispriced. So the one thing that once again, coming from COVID did was that a house prior to COVID that sold in 30 days was probably underpriced intentionally because the seller wanted that was the quick sale. Situation. That was the quick sale. But now, we are in a 30-day days on market, and so that's what.
Is that what you're seeing in Wake County? Average days on market about 30 days.
Absolutely.
But in 2020, it was 11 days, right? Yeah. It was a lot.
But if you go back over time.
So how do you explain that 20-day difference between To me, it's interest rates.
Well, whatever you want to fill in the blanks for is fine. But I would say that if you look at the market over a 30-year period, which I have, and you go back to the recession when the days on market was 120 and 130 days, and if you draw a median line, the median line's about 60. So we're still about 30 days under normal 30-year days on market metric. So it's interesting because things have changed. So prior to COVID, and I've been doing this since 1988, it was the market, I don't want to say it was boring, but it was pretty consistent. There wasn't a lot that changed, other than basic seasonality. But when March 2020 hit, it was like whiplash.
Yeah.
And everybody had to take 20 or 30 or 40 years worth of I know what's going to happen in the market and chuck it.
Right.
It's just,
it was the Wild West.
It wasn't working.
Yeah.
It wasn't working. So you had house prices go up 1 or 2 or 3% per month. You had days on market go from 60 to a week. You had maybe 1 multiple offer during the year to 20 multiple offers on one house.
Yeah. Wow.
It was just you really had to. It was. I was impressed that a profession that is held in the highest academic and professional regard was able to change like that, because that was just something that I was just amazed with it. But that's what happened, and so we're still dealing with the residuals from that.
It's funny. I want to do this again in 90 days because I think your data will show days on market getting even longer.
Okay.
And that's just my impression of what I think is happening. Stacy runs the TARR report. We'll put a link to the TARR report on this video, because it's just invaluable information. It's the best around. Not to toot his horn while he's here. I'll toot it if he's not here. Is just great raw information. And your latest one was from August, right? Mm-hmm. I'd be very interested to see what the rest of the year looks like as we go through. I'm like the first person to click on your videos when I get the email anyway.
Right.
But I'm no wizard, but I think you're going to start to see what I've noticed in your videos is not only has days on market started to go up, but the number of houses that have required a price drop has gone up, which I think is interesting.
Right.
And sort of speaks to where I sense the market going. There's just, so in 2020, it was this perfect storm of supply and demand, low interest rates, and buyer sentiment, right, about the market. Mm-hmm. Right now, I feel like it's sort of the perfect storm the other way. And these are feelings, right? So you can contradict it. This is what it is, a discussion. People say the market is cyclical. It always goes up, it goes down, it comes back. But never in the history of real estate have you had people coming out of 3% mortgage rates.
Right.
So it's uncharted territory.
Right.
And I think that's part of the reason that we're seeing inventory stay low, because sellers don't really have a reason with increased pricing and higher interest rates. They don't really have a reason to get out of their homes. Right. I told somebody earlier this year when it was really tougher, I'm only helping people that are moving for jobs or that are getting divorced. And that was the bulk of the sellers we were helping, right? People that had to move. Right. And I see sentiment as such a key factor in this whole thing. Right. And I have listings all over Southwest Wake County, all over Wake County, in Durham County. And I know that given the comps, they're priced right. Now we can certainly look at them each and have that discussion. Right. But maybe one isn't priced right. Mm-hmm. I probably need to have a conversation with that seller. But I'll get as aggressive as the market dictates. Right. But I want to be responsible about where the market actually is as well, and what the sentiment is about buying. How do you see sort of transitioning into that? How do you see the Fed's decision a couple weeks ago affecting sort of all these statistics? Personally, I think that, everyone was waiting for the Fed to drop the interest rate. They dropped it a full basis point. And everyone was expecting this landfall of mortgage interest rates to follow, but they've been talking about reducing the rate for months. I think personally, when you saw rates go from 7.5 to 6.5, a lot of that drop was already baked in.
Yep.
So I think if you're waiting for if you're waiting for two things in the real estate market, specifically in North Carolina, if you're waiting for rates to go back to 3, you're going to be waiting a very long time. And if you're waiting for 2008 pricing, you're going to be waiting an even longer time. I do see some price adjustments happening,
right,
but I don't see them to the point of, you can go on Twitter and see some people say, housing prices are going to drop 70%. And I think it's so irresponsible, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of national press that are saying that, and I think it's irresponsible.
So talk about the interest rate. We'll sort of wrap up with this, but talk about sort of what your feelings are in the interest rate as what I was saying, and how you see the next 12 months going for our micro market here in North Carolina.
Right. So you want to bake a cake here?
Well, let's bake a cake.
Okay, you ready for some ingredients?
So
with a cake, the cake is higher house prices.
Right.
Okay? That's what the cake's going to look like.
Okay.
So one of the things that you want to put in there is lower mortgage rates.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on top of that, actually before the base layer of the cake, is low inventory. So when we look at inventory, we look at months of housing supply. 3 months or less is an undersupply. 4, 5, 6 is a balanced supply. 10 is an oversupply. We have been oversupplied for the last 15 August, the last time I looked at it. That's why house prices keep going up. So essentially what you're doing is you've got that base. Now, does the base change based upon demographics? Well, one of the things that's going to help the base, or however you want to look at it, is demographics. So the boomers, of which I'm at the bottom end of the boomers, but the big, if you look at the boomers as a bell curve, the meat of the boomers are getting ready to move.
Right.
And a lot of them have. But that's going to produce resale inventory. So that's a good thing. But if you're trying to take the point of housing bubble come up, you have to remember where that last bubble came from.
Right.
That came from demand that was not economically based. 100%. Demand now, the economic demographics of today's buyer have never been better in the history of United States real estate. So to say that you talk about the unaffordability of house prices, well, it's unaffordable for the people that can't buy it, but it's affordable for the people that can.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. I can't see anything short of a international catastrophe that is going to cause house prices to drop. Just because you have a chronic undersupply, especially of resale housing. It's just not in anything that I look at or anything that I've read or anything that I would opine that says there's going to be this flood of resale listings, because that's the first thing. It's this law of supply and demand. If you have a chronic undersupply of a thing, it's really, really hard for the price of that thing to go down. Now, you add lower interest rates to it, you've just put another layer on that cake. So I think the people that are out there chirping about the house price bubble and housing prices are going to go down, I think they're just out there trying to get clicks, as Coach Prime would say.
Yeah.
It's just there's no economic basis for it. There just isn't. And if you have unemployment going down, which it is, there's nothing out there short of a international incident that would cause this to happen.
Yeah. So higher interest rates and lower buyer urgency, you might see a little dip,
right,
but you're not going to see a meltdown.
No.
And I think the biggest thing I took from today is Stacy and I are going to have to review the pricing on some of my listings. We may have some tough conversations, but if you've been on the market longer than 30 days, you probably have a pricing problem in this market.
You do.
You do have a pricing problem in this market. So Stacy, you're the man. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mike Waldron. We get calls, texts, emails, Zoom requests from people just like you on a daily basis looking to learn more about our area. If that is you, all of our contact information is below in the comments section. We would love to be your local resource as you make your move to the Triangle. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll get with Stacy again real soon and have some more discussion. Thanks.
All right, cool.